Hey everybody, I'm waiting for my kids at karate and sitting in my car. And it's been a while since I've made a video. I've had my kids home a lot and lots of visitors and just all sorts of things get in the way of doing anything, and honestly sometimes I just feel like I don't have any right or any business putting videos out. Like it's just, what the heck do I know? Like basically nothing. So yeah, it feels awkward. I'm sure all of you feel that way, that put videos out. It's like imposter syndrome or something. I don't know. Anyhow, I just had something today that just blew my ever-loving mind, and I just wanted to I just wanted to say something about it. So I watched a video. I'm not going to say who the person who made the video was, but I watched a video today, and this person spoke about Matthew chapter 25. I think that's what it is. I'm really bad with scriptorian things like numbers and verses and stuff like that. Anyhow, she talked about, and that's the parable of the 10 virgins, right? Okay, so we have the parable of the 10 virgins in that chapter. We have the parable of the talents, and we have the parable of the goats and the sheep, right? And she was talking about how that story always bothered her. She didn't understand how, how Jesus could be saying these things that he was saying. Like, that's not the Jesus that she knows. The Jesus she knows doesn't say, you can't share your oil or your wisdom or your knowledge or anything, with your sister virgin people. You have to go buy it. Like this, like, kind of, she called it a scarcity mentality, and I'd never thought of that before. Also, she brought out how that idea of 10%, that 10 virgins are supposed to be covenant keeping members of the church, and how, basically that essentially equates to some kind of competition where only the most righteous people with the most oil in their lamps, they're the ones, and like, we're in a competition. Like, as long as we have more oil than someone else, then we'll make it into the kingdom of God. And how can we even quantify that? And are we going around like looking at other people's oil and like, I'm not necessarily one of those like people who have soft squishy feelings in those departments. I'm not the type of person that probably would ever use the word scarcity mentality. Like, I don't think that I would use that word in my life, and I don't think I would ever just in my brain think about that situation as like some kind of competition, although I fully see what she meant, and I don't disagree with it. It's just, that's not how I think. Anyhow, but here is the place that blew my mind. So, as you're all familiar, because we studied it last year, how Jesus likes to compare things and make comparisons to teach us about what the kingdom of heaven is, right? Well, if you go through all of the parables and all of the, the examples that he gives, the parallels that he gives, they all start out with, the kingdom of heaven is like this, or I'm going to liken this to the kingdom of heaven, right? But that chapter 25, I'm pretty sure it's 25, or maybe 26, of Matthew, it doesn't start out that way exactly. What it says is, and in that day, or whatever the equivalent for in that day is, it's not and shall come to pass or anything like that, but it's something like that. I can't remember. And I don't have my scriptures with me, which is why this is a completely inappropriate time for me to be doing this, but I just had to. So I'm doing it. Anyhow, so basically, in that day, people are going to say that the kingdom of heaven is like this, is how that starts. And then he proceeds to talk about women who think they're wise, which wisdom can be a good and a bad thing. It's equally treated in all of the scriptures. There are ways to be wise that are good and ways to be wise that are bad. And he's saying there are women who are wise and women who are foolish. And the women who are wise as serpents, perhaps, say, I'm not going to share what I have with you. You got to go buy your own. And, or, this is a competition. I have oil and you don't. You could take it that way. Maybe that's the wisest serpents kind of idea. But, kind of how I thought of it was, that it's not exactly the, wise and foolish competition there. It is more about the fact that because of the wisdom that some people have and the foolishness that other people have, that God is going to, or Jesus is going to say, you guys get to come in and you guys are kicked out. I never knew you. You never did anything good. And what's very interesting about that is that there's a place in there where it says all of the women fell asleep. They weren't awake. They weren't watching. And then there's a warning right before he goes to the next parable that says, so make sure you're watching always. And so to me, I'm thinking, okay, so what does this look like? If he's saying that people are going to say that this is what the kingdom of heaven looks like, to me, he's talking about like, oh, the wise women, they're the ones who have the oil in their lamp, and they're going to get to go to heaven. And the foolish women are going to do all they can to get more oil, including try to, get some off of the wise women, but then they're going to have to go buy the oil. And then once they actually get the oil, then they're going to go to the thing, but God is going to say, you're not allowed in. You can't come here, and I don't even know who you are. And that's what people are going to say the kingdom of heaven is like in the last days. I thought that was really interesting. What's even more interesting is that this lady, she stopped there. That was how she, that was the whole thing. But even though there's little paragraph marks in the scriptures, the way that the chapter moves on is really interesting. And we like to pretend that it says something that I now believe is not what it says. It is a lower understanding of it, at least. And that is, we talk about the parable of the talents. In those days, men are going to say that the kingdom of heaven is like Heavenly Father giving 5 talents, which I think it's hilarious that we don't think Jesus meant talents like money, like a talent. We think that he means some kind of, and it's a twisting. It's a twisting of the truth so that we can try to explain something so that it makes sense to us, because we don't believe what Jesus actually said. And that Jesus is going to give, or God is going to give 5 talents to one person, and 2 talents to another person, and 1 talent to another person. And just as long as you make more money, that you're going to get into the kingdom of heaven. And the person who hides that talent and doesn't do anything with it, digs it down and says, I was scared if I did anything with your money. Like, I was scared about it. I didn't want to make more money. I didn't know what to do with it. Like, because, you're kind of a scary God who likes to take what he doesn't earn. I buried my talent, and that person, that's the one that's going to hell. And I'm going to give all of their money, the money that they got from me, I'm going to give it to the person who has the most money. And I just thought, no, I don't think that this is I think that is a philosophy of the world, that the rich deserve what they get, and as long as they make more money, then they're going to get even more money. And that the people who are in the middle, who do double it, well, they're good and faithful servants. All of them are good and faithful servants, except for the one person who was scared of God and didn't know what to do with the talent. And we take that in a totally different way, and we try to pretend like it's about abilities and natural gifts that God gives us. And it's not. It's about money. This is a rich versus poor kind of thing. This is a person who comes into this life, and naturally, because of the family that they're born into, they have so much more money. And so they're able to do so much more with that, to make themselves even more rich. And then this is about somebody who comes into this world that's given less money, and they kind of hoard their money away and are scared to do anything with it, and that person's going to hell. Honestly, though, if you look really closely at how our world is organized, that sounds a lot like what we think. I mean, I used to be a patriotic person, a very American dream kind of person, but doesn't that kind of sound like the American dream? As a philosophy of men. And I do not believe that God is the kind of being that says, oh, because, you were given this talent, this money, and you were really careful with it and scared to use it because it belonged to somebody else, that you're going to burn in hell. But I do believe that the world is willing to burn a lot of people in hell for not having money. So the last one is that the goats and the sheep. So this is about, works. So we've discussed wisdom, we've discussed money, and now we're going to talk about works. And Jesus says, all the people who are on my right hand, they're the people who fed me when I was, sick, and clothed me when I was naked, and they just did all of these wonderful things for me because they did them to everybody else. And all of those people are good, and they're going to be on my right hand. But everybody else who didn't do those things, who didn't do those works, they're going to burn in hell. They're going to be cast out. Because when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're all these works that you're supposed to do. When you don't do them, hell, that's what happens. I'm just going to burn you all. And we really have twisted that into being like, oh, it's charity. I think there's a lot of things that need to be thought about that. Now, the very first 2 verses of the next chapter, chapter 26, I think, or I don't think it's 27. I really think that this is chapter 25 and 26. The very next 2 verses are verse 1. After Jesus had finished saying all these things to his disciples, meaning the parables, he talked about the end of the world. Matthew 24 is the end of the world chapter. And then he tells them these parables about, watch out for these things, because this is what men are going to say the kingdom of heaven is like. I've spent my whole 3 years trying to teach you what the kingdom of heaven is like. But this is what man's going to say the kingdom of heaven is like, these 3 parables. And then he says, and then it says, after Jesus had spoken all of these things to his apostles or his disciples, he said, it's almost Passover. Do we understand what Passover is? Do we understand what the point of Passover is? So he says, in 2 days it's going to be Passover, the Passover feast. And then the Son of Man is going to be betrayed and crucified. Now, I find that, and then we go, the very next sentence, verse is talking about Caiaphas. Those 2 verses, I truly believe, should have been attached to chapter 25. Because it completely makes the point that Jesus was making. And that is, my job and the point of my existence is to rescue everybody. The world is going to say, everybody's going to hell. But what I say is, nobody's going to hell unless they put themselves there. Because I am trying to rescue every single one of my Father's children. Anybody who will even just look to me, if they will just cast their eyes in my direction, I will heal them. And he's saying, reminding them, even though they don't understand, what the gospel truly is about is that because of me, death and hell get passed over for you. You are going to pass over those. Death and hell is going to pass over you, or you're going to pass over those things because of me, because of my death and my sacrifice. And that's going to happen in about, in just a few more days. And I'm going to be hung on the cross, and then that's how you all get saved. That's the kingdom of heaven, is people who understand who I am, who understand that all you have to do is look to Christ, and there's not going to be any hell for you. Hell is of your own making. Being cast out, the world wants to teach us that. What Jesus is always teaching us is, I want to include you. I want to save you. So, I hope that that's helpful. I hope that makes your wheels turn, like it did mine. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day.